Hello once again, 'tis I, Nick Hennigan, Artistic Director and factotum of the Maverick Theatre Company, recounting yet more episodes of the Stream of Consciousness diary we made back in 1997 about a new play called A Ghost of a Chance. I'm just going to dive straight in. Thanks again for your comments and your emails. It's lovely to hear from you. Especially nice, as I mentioned earlier, to hear from some of the people that have been involved in Maverick in the past. Okay, but let's get on with it. This was a strange time for me, as is 2020 a strange time for all the world. Monday, the 23rd of June, 1997. I'm trying to arrange a first read-through for Paul Henry and Justin Towler for A Ghost of a Chance this Saturday at the MAC, the Midlands Arts Centre. It'll be a chance for them to meet each other for the first time, to bond, to become close and enjoy quality time, so that when we start rehearsals properly, they will, I hope, know and like each other. Paul is very cooperative, the complete professional. Justin is also a complete professional, but a complete professional who, when I phone, is out playing on his bike with his mates, has a paper round each morning, and is at the Royal Shakespeare Company on Saturday, helping the company with the handover of the younger boys whose licences have run out. I finally, through conversations with Paul and Justin's mum, managed to arrange a date 3 weeks hence. It feels like 3 years away, but at least it gives me more time to make the latest alterations to the script from John Adams. I stay in and chat on the internet. I feel I'll soon get bored with it, but it's still a bit of a laugh. Tonight, I am just me on the chat pages. Oh, and a visitor from the planet Zark. People obviously like us Zarkians. I chat for ages with the humans. Maybe there's a show in this somewhere. Tuesday, 24th of June. Help! Doctor! I'm ill! I've caught internet fever. I can't stay off the bloody thing. I find a theatre mag in the USA and add our listings. So if you're ever in Baltimore in America and you want to know what's on at the Billsley pub in Kings Heath, Birmingham, well, now you can find out. I decide to blow up the planet Zark. Too much pollution. I found the Les Mis pages and read about Cameron Mackintosh, the producer. Les Mis, or the Glums as it's often referred to in the Beers Loves, opens in Birmingham this week. The page describes Cameron as a maverick producer. The last time Cameron M was in Birmingham was 30 years ago, apparently, with a small touring production of a play called The Little Foxes. It bombed and he lost all his money. See, hope for all of us. I think the main difference between me and Cameron Mackintosh, apart from a few million quid, that is that his mom was able to support him financially through his early lean times. Mine would love to, but can't afford it. Hey-ho, life on a council estate. I have another strange child experience today. Dragging myself away from the internet and the planet Zark, I go to Kings Heath to visit the bank. They always laugh a lot when I walk in. Before I get there, I meet Linda Jagger and her brood. Linda was the first poor fool who agreed to volunteer to help us at Maverick, and she's done a really great job helping to sell ads in the programme. I really appreciate her assistance, particularly as she's trying to get an antiques business going, and as if that wasn't enough, her marriage went wrong a few years ago, and she's single-handedly bringing up her 3 children. Her eldest boy, Aaron, is 17, Carla is 8, and Owen is 6. Linda has just picked up Carla and Owen from school, and I bump into her in the high street in Kings Heath. I haven't seen her for a while, so I try and keep her up to date with what's happening. Linda often stops me during our chats because she loses track of everything that's going on. It's no reflection on Linda, of course. Slater says the same thing. Apparently, I tend to enthuse sometimes, and as there is so much going on in my brain and my mouth, they tend to lose touch with each other. So I'm giving Linda the lowdown on Up and Under and A Ghost of a Chance. She invites me back to hers for coffee, so I leave the humiliation that is a trip to the bank and accept her invitation. I stop to get some fags, loudly disclaiming the disgusting habit in front of the kids. Owen wants issue 2 of a dinosaur magazine with some plastic bits on the front. Apparently, week after week, the magazine contains bits of a glow-in-the-dark T-Rex. Very clever of the publishers, that. I say I'll buy it for him, but he says, no, Mummy says Mummy has to pay. Well-trained kid. But I pay anyway. Linda's done lots for Maverick, and it's the least I can do. Last year, we took a stall at the King's Heath Carnival in an attempt to publicise pub theatre to the local community. Linda was there again with the kids. Owen was great at dishing out leaflets for Play It Again, Sam. He wouldn't take no for an answer. If anyone refused one of the leaflets, he'd hang on to their legs. They either had to take a flyer off him or drag a 5-year-old around all day. Cool kid. I admire his tenacity and focus. We didn't take a stall at the King's Heath Carnival this year. We couldn't actually afford it, although it was probably a good thing. It poured down all day, and by the time I went to the park at 3:30 to have a look, everyone had packed up and gone home. Shame. So, we're walking back to Linda's in King's Heath when something brushes my hand. I flinch and pull away, and then look down, and it's Owen. He gives me a slightly puzzled look, and then, with his leaflet distribution glint in his eye, he grabs my hand. I'm not quite sure how to play this role, but Owen doesn't have a problem. So we hold hands, and then Carla holds her mum's hand, and we look quite the little family unit. Walking down York Road in King's Heath towards Linda's house, Owen suddenly dashes away to the front door of a carpet shop. The elderly Asian gentleman comes to the door with a long roll of lino. Owen, grunting and panting, picks it up. The shopkeeper smiles. This is obviously a regular ritual. "You have a strong boy," says the shop owner to me. Yes, I replied, thinking this is the easiest way out, and I carry on shuffling down the road. We get to Linda's and sit in the kitchen, and I try to fill her in with what's going on with Maverick and finance while the kids do what kids do. That sort of constant buzz of questions and squabbling. Suddenly, Owen takes another turn. He climbs up onto my lap with a book and asks if we can read it. Eh? Well, yeah, I suppose we can. So I have a surreal half hour with Owen reading Lost in the Jungle, or whatever it's called. He decides to add some spice to the event by getting me to read every other line. Then Carla commandeers my other leg, and we sit there, the three of us, taking it in turns to read out each line. Being a natural artist, obviously, I decide to vary the narration by giving the characters funny voices. My Mickey the monkey obviously impresses my fellow performers. I soon forget I'm not children-friendly, and we pass a half hour having a laugh. Now, if you're a parent, stuff like this is probably not too unusual, but it was a fairly new experience for me, and I was struck by two things. The first was the way in which young children can unconditionally offer affection and trust. Although I've known Owen for about 1/5 of his life, none of the adult conditions of behaviour have been implanted on him yet. He wanted to hold my hand and sit on my knee, and so he did. Not a problem. This emotional openness also heightened, in my mind, the huge responsibility that goes with having kids. I was reminded of the time I took my then young nephews, Christian and Andy, to the radio studios at BRMB in Birmingham, where I was working as a DJ, a presenter. It was great being with them, I loved it, but I seemed to spend all my time looking out for them. They were probably about Owen's age, and I was terrified by normal things. Crossing Aston Road North, or maybe I was right to be scared of that, it's a busy road. Making sure the drinks I bought them weren't too hot. Keeping him away from the patchboard because it might contain live wires in the studio. Stuff I'd never normally give much thought to. The second point that struck me is how much drama there really is in our average lives. I was talking to my sister-in-law, Mel, about this very thing. I'm sure anyone reading this has had enough happen to them to find the material for a really good book or a play. And there is, I think, a benefit in seeing the glory of it all, turning up the dramatic volume on our own lives. Who is normal? What is normal about any of our lives? We are all special. We're all special. Peopled with real characters and real situations. I think on this for a bit and feel how much better everyday life might be if we took the everyday bit out of it. Life is all drama and conflict, and it's great as long as it's not cruel. Every individual is a celebration of being here. Flippin' heck, a bit deep, eh? Thank you, Owen and Carla. Eventually, we finished the story, and on my way back home, away from the jungles and the monkeys to where grown-ups live, As I leave, Linda gives me a smile and squeezes my hand, and she says, "Thanks for keeping the kids occupied." I casually reply, "No problem." And it really wasn't a problem. I really quite enjoyed it. Thursday the 19th of June 1997. Boom! I still haven't done the rewrites to the latest version of A Ghost of a Chance. Paul Henry phones to see if I can give him the most up-to-date version. I flannel a bit. Paul has already started learning my lines. Everything I've read about writers and writing says how the usual thing is for writers to find any excuse not to write. Quite true. Back to the internet and Planet Zarg. Saturday the 28th of June 1997. Oh, another headache. And strangely enough, given my current sensitivity to all things young at the moment, I can blame it all on the youth of today. Sort of. Well, OK, it's my own stupid fault, but I did drink too much at a youth theatre cabaret performance. I've already mentioned the Stage 2 youth group that meets at the Midlands Arts Centre. It's where John Napier came from. They hold a cabaret evening at the Billesley pub to raise money for their forthcoming trip to the Edinburgh Festival. And as I've abused their leaders and kids in an attempt to find a boy for Ghost, and Glenn Bays, our homegrown director, still has connections with them and is performing at the cabaret, I buy a ticket and turn up at 7:30. Well, actually, I turn up at 7 p.m. because I've got to meet a writer, Steve Jackson. Steve is a good old boy who attended Birmingham University and took an MA course in playwriting. The course is run by the writer David Edgar and is one of the best in the country. Steve and I are someday going to produce one of his plays. He has a very definite style, but his work is not as accessible perhaps as we need at the pub at the moment. I've got details of a new play award by a foundation. They can award up to £50,000 for a new play if they like it, and we're going for it. The problem with pub theatre, as I've already mentioned, is that we can't afford to lose money. And like any other theatre in the country, we have no finance or overdraft facility to fall back on. So if even one play loses money, then it's goodbye Maverick. I think we could take a chance on a new play like A Ghost of a Chance because it has Paul Henry in it and is being directed by John Adams. But more importantly, the Guinness Award has meant that in the unlikely event that nobody turns up, it will not destroy the company. In order to produce other new plays, I need to find a similar safety net. So Steve brings me a copy of the play he wrote for his final exam at Birmingham University, Dead Vegetables. I'm writing a letter to this foundation explaining why we want to put on Steve's play. He gives me a copy of the play, then has to leave as he has his little girl, Millie, with him. I write my name on the envelope of the play just in case. Well, we are in for a bit of a party. The deadline for the awards is Monday, and I have to carry this envelope with me all night. I hit the function room at the Billesley, and although I went more from a sense of duty than anything else, I have to say I really enjoy the night. There are a few highlights. The first are the young comperes, Jack and Steve. I've already mentioned Steve elsewhere in this tone. He's the 16-year-old who looked 25 since he was about 12. And their delivery would not look out of place on any TV show, and better than you normally see on cable or satellite telly. Then Glenn and Scott do the whack-off scene from Neil Simon's Brighton Beach Memoirs. It's a play I'm very close to as well, because years ago I played the, rather young I have to say, father, Jack, to Glenn's Eugene. Eugene is Jack's young son and the narrator of the action. I was struck by how good Glenn is at acting, and I feel a twinge of guilt in that I'm partly responsible for Glenn not treading the boards, love, anymore. Perhaps more about that later. Scott, the Stage 2 leader of this parish, and already mentioned in these noble scribes, does a great job playing Eugene's older brother, Stanley, as Stan educates Eugene in the ways of the world and women. It's a funny scene, brilliantly played. I laugh a lot and drink a pint to the good old days. Glenn also performs one of the songs he's written since he moved to London to pursue his musical aspirations, a moving tribute to Bob Dylan. There are other lovely moments, as moms, dads and kids all mucking together to perform for the audience. It's really a series of turns, and there's something of the charm of a Victorian parlour family, getting up to perform their party tricks for everyone's mutual enjoyment. Steve does some solo stand-up, and again his delivery's spot on. And then a surreal moment when a lad called Cian, pronounced Cian, yeah, I had trouble with that one, Irish spelling, don't you know, Cian gets up and a cappella sort of sings one of his own creations. According to the free programme, it's called the Ooh, that sexy cheese song. and I become an instant fan. It goes everywhere and is obviously the product of a strange and talented mind. It's all about, well, cheese, really, I think. But then again, maybe not. There are various literal plays. The one I remember goes something like, I was swimming in the sea, I was relaxed and thought I'd found my purpose in life, but I hadn't. It was a dolphin. You get the idea. And then Liz Light, head Stage 2 honcho, and Craig, one of her trusted helpers, recite a couple of brilliant poems. Liz, I think, should be on the stage, but then with 200-odd kids in her youth group, I guess she's got enough to get on with. Naomi, one of our actors from Teachers, and her mum sing a few songs to the accompaniment of a guitar. When Glenn's finished his grown-up duties and performances, we stand at the bar downstairs quaffing laughing brew, Lauenbrau to the uninitiated. Glenn spends most of his time saying, it's great to be back in Brum, and drinking some more. He's lost weight, I notice, and as I comment on it, he slurs, just like a big brother. The cabaret finishes and the alcoholic bonhomie takes over. I buttonhole little Kean, tell him I think he's mad and I think he should write more. I tell Steve how brilliant he is. He must keep at it. A few of us troop off to the Ambassador's Indian restaurant in King's Heath, our kind of D camp base. There's Glenn, Kean, Naomi, someone I don't know, and myself. Glenn and I are reliving something we used to do often after shows at the Billesley pub. Lager louts both. Beer and curry. Lovely jubbly Rodney. Glenn has to leave first as he's emotionally disturbed due to the lager. We walk Naomi home and Kean and I go back to mine for a coffee and call a taxi for him. We have a chat. He says he'd like to be an actor and I tell him it's a hard career choice but he should go for it. The cab comes and I crash out. It's only the following day that I realise Kean told me he's 14. I mean, he looks and acts older and he checked it was okay for him to come out with us, but it makes a bit of a mockery of my earlier twitchiness with young uns, doesn't it? I think I'm coming to terms with the fact that I'm dealing with people here. I'm not in loco parentis, and if I have a laugh with someone who happens to be young, then so what? Thank you, Doctor. I don't need the pills anymore.